Hi, we're doing maintenance of a power contractor in the for a locomotive, maintenance of a locomotive, the part power contractor, and we're going to bring that up right now. Power contractor. The task covers removal, disassembly, cleaning, inspection, repair, assembly, installation, adjustment, and testing. The initial setup, the toolkit SC4940-97-CLE12. Materials and parts, dry cleaning solvent, and electrical installation varnish for test equipment, variable DC voltage removal. Warning, high voltage is used in the operation of equipment. Do not be misled that the low voltage potential is as low as 50 volts may cause death. Move any rings, bracelets, wrist watches, neck chains before walking around, and locomotive jewelry can catch and equipment cause injury and may short access electrical circuits and cause severe burns. Note that two motor line contactors have interlocks other than the two that do not. Except for the other interlocks, the maintenance procedures are the same. One electrical equipment cabinet door, set the battery switch to open. Make sure the electrical wires are labeled with the wire numbers for polarity. This is the removal. Tag and disconnect the wires from the power contractor assembly. 2. Remove 2 cap screws 1 and flat washers 2 and power contractor 3, and shown in the power contractor drawing assembly right there. The disassembly, press the support spring 7 and the arc chute assembly 4. Remove the 2 cap screws, lock washers, remove the support ring. 4. Remove 2 Allen head screws, 8 lock washers and flat washers, removing the arcing horn and stationary contact tip. Remove the 2 Allen head screws, lock washers, flat washers, removing arching honor horn and movable contact tip and shunt. 6. Loosen and calibrate the lock nut 19. Remove the calibrating screw 20 and calibrating spring assembly 21. Remove the 2 cap screws 22 to lock washer 23, flat washer 24, contact assemblies 25. Remove the 2 cap screws, lock washers, 2 screws 26, lock washers 27, interlockers 28. Where applicable, remove the armature 29. 8. Remove the cotter pin 30 and spring retainer 31, contact pressure spring 32. Disassembly. Remove the 2 cap screws, lock washers, clamps, flat washers 36 and pins 37. Remove the contact lever 38 and armature. Remove the nut 40, lock washers 41, cap screws, clamp, cap screws 42, clamp 42, 2 cap screws 44, lock washers 45, flat washers 46. Insulation bulk, insulation block, insulator 48, top contact holder and blowout coil 49. Remove 2 cap screws, lock washers, flat washers, insulation block, magnet frame with the operating coil 55 and from the base 56. 12. Remove the cap 57, lock washers 58, flat washers 59, separate magnet 54, operating coil and 55. Once again, that's an assembly drawing of the power contactor. You have your base and your operating coil, triggers, and lock washers. Get used to that lock washers, screw, and nut. Disassembly 13. Disassemble the interlocking by the following. All contacts removed the same way. Note that all contacts are removed the same way. Only one is called out. Remove the nut, lock washer, flat washer, and contact finger. B. Remove the screw 64, lock washer, flat washer 66, contact support 67, and the base 68. Cleaning and inspection. Dry cleaning with a solvent PD680 is the toxic flammable. Wear protective goggles, gloves. Use only well ventilated area. Avoid contact skins, eyes closed. And don't breathe vapors. Do not use near open flames or excessive heat. The flash points is 100 to 138 degrees, 38 to 59 degrees Celsius. If you become dizzy, get fresh air, get medical and aid immediately. If contact with the eyes made with wash your eyes and get medical aid immediately. Compressed air used for cleaning purposes will not exceed 30 psi. Do not directly compress against air against skin. Use goggles on full face shield. Thoroughly clean the parts with dry cleaning solvent, dry with compressed air. The power contactor continued. Cleaning, inspection, and repair. Inspection repair components. The arc chute number 4. Inspect the arc chute. Replace plates that are broken and burned in a 3/4 or through. Replace if the burn closes to the screw. Contact ships 12 and 17. Inspect the tips. Replace if worn with 3/32 of an inch or 2.38 millimeters. Remove the silver tips if the silver is worn through. Caution: do not use sandpaper or emery cloth. Use a file. Smooth tips that are slightly corroded and pitted. Do not bend and contact main the same the main surface contour. C. Contact lever. Inspector bushing the inside of the diameter is worn beyond 0.32 of an inch, or replace lever. Inspect that the hinge pin. Replace the pin scored or burned. Shunt. D. Shunt 18. Inspect the braid copper for the wire fraying, discoloration, stiffness. Replace the shunt if the above coordination exists. E. The operation coil. Use multimeter check coil resistance. Replace the coil to the measured value if necessary between 24.3 to 29.8 ohms. 2. Check the coil terminals for the damage. Check the oil if damaged. Coil for damage, dry, brittle installation if necessary. Installation applied with electrical. Installation varies. Varnish. Replace coil if necessary. And to the right, you see the indication of a melting, warping, or permitted. It shows the indication of overheating. Blacking should appear in these areas. The threads must be clean. Must withstand 130 pound per inch torque or 5/16 of an inch socket head cap screw at a full thread engagement with a maximum diameter of 0.32 of an inch, and 90% of the surface of it must be cleaned using the file retaining flatness. The power contactor cleaning, inspection, and repair continued. F. The armature. Inspect the armature for the round bearing edge and uneven wear. The armature of the bearing is worn beyond 1/32 of an inch or 793 millimeters. 0.793 millimeters. Replace the armature. Inspect the armature bracket. Extensions end of the armature to the calibrating spring is attached. Inspect the pin over the contact pressure spring fits. Replace the pin if necessary. If 1/64 of an inch of the pin remains between the hole and the end of the pin, inspect the armature shim. Replace the shim if the portion between the armature and the magnet is pounding more than halfway through, or if it's short bent up in the portion more than 1/2 through. To the right, you see the picture. It shows less than 1/64 of an inch at the metal end, and a shim pounded halfway through. A dimension is to the top of the hole. A worn halfway through. A shim worn 2/3 through. Bearing edge radius over 32 of an inch. Maximum wear 1/16 of an inch, 1/32 of an inch radius. A magnet frame, no notch when new, and calibrating screw less than one. And at the point of less than 1/32 at any point worn through and worn halfway through. G. The armature stop 29. Inspect the armature for the grooving uneven wear. The armature stop at the groove or worn more than 1/16 of an inch at the bearing edge of the armature. Replace the armature stop. Calibrating springs. Inspect the calibrating springs. Replace spring if cracked and corroded notch on the end of the hook and has lost the tension. Contact the pressure spring. Inspect the pressure spring. Replace the spring if cracked, corroded notch on the end of the hook and low on the tension annealed, showing signs of electrical damage. Stationary contact tip. Inspect the contact tips to spot discoloration caused by overheating or for the cracks. Replace the contact if any of the above conditions are found. Inspect the tapped holes for the signs and burred and stripped and damaged threads. Replace the contacting tip of the hole will not restore the threads. K. The base. Inspecting the base 56 for soundness. Replace the base if it appears oil soaked or cracked. Paint the base with 1 or 2 coats of installation varnish. And the assembly is interlocking 28 by the following. Note that all contacts are the same, assembled the same way. Only one of each kind is called out. Position contact 67 on the base 68. Installing the flat washer 66 and lock washer 65 and the screw 64. Position the contact figure 63 on the contact support 67. Install the flat washer 62, lock washer 61, and nut and cut 64. Posting operation 55 on the magnet frame 54. Installing the flat washer on 59, lock washer 58, and the cap screw 57. Position the magnet frame with the operating coil insulation block on the base. Installing 2 flat washers, the lock washer, and a cap screw. Position 2 contact holders, blowouts 49, insulation 48, insulation block 47 on the base 56. Install the 2 flat washers 46, lock washers 45, cap screws 44. Position the clamp 43. Install the cap screws and lock washer and nut. Position armature and contactor. Position the armature and the contactor lever together. Install the pin, 2 flat washers, clamps, the 35 lock washer, 34 cap screws, 33. Install the contact pressure spring, 32 to the spring retainer, 31 cotter pin, 30. Position the armature stop, 29 interlocking, 28 magnet side frame. And install the 2 lock washers and the cap with the screws 26 where applicable. Position the contact assembly 25 into the 2 flat washer 24, lock washer 23, and the cap screws 22. Connect the calibrating screw assembly on the armature stop. Installing the calibrating screw assembly. Tighten the calibrating screw lock nut. Position the shunt 18 movable contact tip arcing horn. Install the 2 flat washers, locker washer, Allen head screws. Position the stationary contact arcing horn and the arcing horn, installing the 2 flat washers, lock washers, and Allen head screws. Position the support spring, install the 2 lock washers, cap screws, install the arc chute assembly, and position the power contactor assembly 3, install the flat washers 2 and cap screw 1. Connect the electrical wires in accordance with the wire diagram. Removable adjustment, measure the contact over travel follows. The over travel is the distance movable contact with the travel after touching stationary tip and the stationary tip when moved. Measure the overhead by either method 1 or pin A and method 2 pin B. Contact table 3 for the over travel size pin required measuring amount. Contact tips, the core head armature, air grip shim, air gap shim, the over travel gauge A against the air gap shim not on it, and pin over the travel gauge 8 resting against the spring pin. On the spring pin, energizing coil, inserting wedge, hold the armature fully closed. Adjustments, your new tips of the new contactor or overall travel, 1032s and 1232s of an inch. Old contactors, 932s, 332s of an inch. A new contactor at 1032s of an inch has a status of go. At gauge pin at the A 017 10116 0200s. 1232s of an inch new contactor no go status 207 at 207 A and at point B 2400s. Old contactor 932s of an inch go at 1600s and 1800s at B. 1332s no go status at 23,000s 223,260 Low limit old contactor, old limit 732s of an inch status no go at 1300s and 1400s at B. If overall travel is insufficient, check the following conditions: badly worn, bent, incorrect tips, badly bent stationary contact tip support, and if overall travel is too high, check the following conditions: bent, incorrect tips, ward stop, the contact levers, stationary contact tip support. Adjustment, measure the tip at brakes as follows. Make sure the contactor armature is against the stop when making the measurement, otherwise the reading about it will be false. Measure the tip of the air gap between the minimum spacing when the tips are open. Tip brake should be at 1432s or 1932s of an inch or 11.11 or 15.08 millimeters with a worn contactor at I guess that's 332s of an inch or 18. I can't read that, but 11.9 to 1429 millimeters for the new contactor. If the tip is not correct, check the following conditions: worn bent contactor, bent armature stop, worn bent contacting lever, adjusting gap, bending of the armature stop. Measure tip alignment adjustment as follows. Note the maximum allowable side misalignment of the contact tips is 332ths of an inch or 2.38 millimeters. Check the misalignment. If necessary, loosen the screw holding with the magnet frame and the stationary contact tip support of the block. Move the assembly until the tips align properly. If the misalignment cannot be corrected, check for the following conditions: grooving, uneven worn, armature stops around knife edge, uneven wear of the armature pivoting point, grooving, uneven wear of the armature guide. 32, measure the tip pressure and fouls. Measure initial pressure as follows. Block armature not the tip of the lever, so as the contact near the touch. Measure the pull required to adjust the move the contact tip against the contact pressure spring. Check for pull 3.6 to 6.5 pounds. Adjustment, measure the final pressure as follows. The block armature is closed position and the measure of the pull required to separate the contacting tips. Check for pull of 12 to 16 pounds. If pressure measurements are not correct, check the following conditions. Lock initial pressure, defective contactor pressure spring, worn spring seat, washers or worn stops. Low final pressure, defective pressure spring, low wearance allowance, badly worn tips. Test. Measure the adjusting coil's operating current as follows. Use the multimeter. Measure the resistance of the coil. Resistance should be between 24.3 and 29.81 ohms. Replace the defective coil. Connect the power supply armature to the core. Apply the current increase to the slowly until the contactor pick up. Check the contactor pick up without hesitation. This in one quick motion. Include the contacting wipe. The current measured should be 0.638 to 0.775 amperes. Adjusting the calibrating screw until the approved valve of the current is indicated. Manual operating interlocks. Use multimeter. Check resistance of contact infinitely while opening, continually while closed.